Welcome back. This is China Now, 中国现在 with your gang of two, Nansu and Michael Olson. Nansu is the senior investigative reporter for Epoch Times, and yours truly, Michael Olson, was a student of Chinese and intent at one time in my life about going there and becoming a China hand because I love the idea of bringing China into the modern times. I love the idea of democratizing the Chinese society as preached by Mao Zedong himself. And yet, the Mao Zedong that I came to know was not the person who was going to democratize China. He was the one who was going to take over China and turn it into what today more closely resembles a prison than it does a country. And China is not the only country that resembles a prison. You can look at North Korea and you can look at Iran, and wherever you see the totalitarians ruling supreme, you have a prison. You don't have a country. So that is, of course, what something that we've been talking about, Nansu, for quite some time, that China is resembling a prison. And there are stories in the news now in which the Chinese are saying the same thing. We now live in a prison. So I have a couple of stories here, three stories that really illustrate that. So I thought we'd pick them up. And the first story is about how the Chinese Communist Party is broadening its exit and entry powers in establishing those powers in the rule of its law. So the regulations give new legal grounds to stop citizens from leaving China, formalize secret exit bans, and also expand restrictions tied to national security. So, for some reason, the CCP is getting really nervous about people letting people out of prison. Why would that be?
Well, think about this. It's the rich people that's leaving China. They want to
It's the
keep,
only ones who can afford to, right?
yeah. So they want to keep them there, so the CCP can get their money. So CCP really needs money now. They are uh they're doing investigations of all these companies, either state owned or or privately owned. They're going back like 10 years, 15, 20 years, trying to collect the tax or the fees that's doing, and also they're going after all these rich personnels. Those are the people who really have the capability to leave China, travel around the world, and the communist regime it's afraid that once these people leave China, they're never going to go back. Um, so um, that's one
Once
that
they have their money, they're going to make a run for it and they're not coming
yeah.
back.
Yeah, that's one thing. And another thing is keep in mind we are keep talking. We always stress that it's the Xi Jinping is going to go back to Chairman Mao's time. Now,
A lot of people are not going to come to grips with that because they don't really understand what that means going back to Mao's time. What does that mean in a nutshell, Nansu?
that means, that ideologically they're going back to Chairman Mao's fundamentalist communism. So they are going. So you see in China, they have, the state it's taking more and more control in the economy, and ideologically they have more and more control of their media. You have less and less freedom of speech, assembly, freedom of everything. So that's and then all this, I keep repeating myself many times, all this purge of government, military, and party officials in China. It's really because all different levels of this. There were so many party, government, and military officials. They climb up the ladder during the market economy time of last 30, 40 years.
which was very enriching at the time. I mean,
Right, right.
people
So
made money climbing the pole or the
yeah,
slippery pole.
but now it's different, right? So now I just have this is the something um why how much control they have. Chinese people, they're like when their sons or their the daughters when they marry, they have this big banquet, right? They invite a lot of people come to banquet, right? So now I just learned last week somebody I know of back in China, his son coming to the United States. We sit down together. I try to talk. We invite them to have a a dinner together. I just try to talk to them and like welcome them, greet them, and then what they told me. They say even before their wedding banquet because he's going to have he just he paperly married but not ceremony yet. So
Okay.
he's going to have a wedding banquet soon, maybe in the few months. And this is what he told me. He said that in China now, uh, if you're going to have a wedding banquet, you need to first get the approval, and they have a limit how many people you can invite. You can't invite more than what's allowed. Uh, so
To
that's how
what purpose is that? Why do
well,
they?
think about this. When during those market economy years, all these party officials, they become really rich,
Right.
and also they have a power. They can exchange for money. So when the party officials, when their family have this kind of a banquet, then everybody will go there and give them the red envelope, right?
The red envelopes, yep, with
The
money
money.
in them.
It's money, right? Those are like a huge amount of money, right? Xi Jinping don't like it, right? So
So
maybe
there's an opportunity to buy people via the red envelopes at weddings and other things. So
that's
it's a
right.
way for people to exert control outside of the Chinese Communist Party's control.
Well, no, no, no. It's this is the thing, they're going back to China. Now, of course, this is corruption, by any standard, this is corruption, right? But however, uh, to the Chinese Communist Party, those corruption, it's eroding their power base,
Right.
right?
Because
So
People with money don't have to rely on the CCP.
now we were hoping, now the people in the U.S. government in the Western world, we were hoping China, after through a period time of corruption, eventually they're going to reform. They will realize, their government, their political system don't have necessary check and balance capability. So they will move towards to democracy and rule of law, so that they'll do political reform and get rid of this kind of corruption. But Xi Jinping is doing a totally different way. They are going back to Chairman Mao's time to have the government total control of everything, even, you know, even how many guests you're going to invite into your banquet. He's doing that. If he's doing that, this is how he does to get rid of corruption. It's just more and more control of the uh, fundamental ideology as well as the party control everybody, people's everyday life. So this is a totally different way that we didn't expect that how these things is going to take place.
So during the era of Mao Zedong, uh, the CCP controlled everything totally. Going into Deng Xiaoping, Deng Xiaoping said, "Hey, let's get rich," and so the party got rich, and the people in the party got very rich, and it grew like that through Jiang Zemin's time. But when it came to Xi Jinping says, no, this is corrupting our party officials and weakening their resolve to be revolutionaries. So we're going back to uh, Chairman Mao's time. Now, what I don't understand is that if you remove all that incentive to make money through corruption, which is what Xi Jinping says he wants to do, what reason is there to become involved in the Chinese Communist Party? If you can't make money, what do you do? I
Well,
mean,
because
if your control doesn't give you the
no, that's not true. There's still motivation. There's a lot more. You have a lot stronger motivation, actually. See, this is how the Western people get it totally wrong because you try to understand the Chinese Communist Party and that political system in the way that how we understand life in the United States. But in China, think about this. Back in Chairman Mao's time, people still trying very hard to climb up the power ladder, right?
yes.
Because you are totally dependent on the government in that kind of a system. And of course, the higher you get,
The
that's
more
how
privilege you have.
yeah, more privilege. Now, it back in Chairman Mao's time, there was no market economy. The power cannot be exchanged for money because why? Because there is no commercial products, right?
No way
Once
to make money.
there's no way to make it money. So when the products made in the factory, uh, but when it's the factory made it, they don't call it commercial products because there's no commerce. So all the country owned by the government. So and then they once they made the products, the product will be called substance instead of commercial products. Goods. It's not goods. There's no goods.
So
So
it was subsistence.
yeah, the substance that's for your basic needs, right?
Okay,
So
subsistence product. Okay, gotcha. It was
uh,
the word subsistence, I think, what you need to live with.
yeah. So they will basically there is a department in Chinese government. So they will take all the products from the factories, and they will uh
Distribute them.
distribute them based on how many people that maybe you're in military, maybe you're in the countryside, maybe you're living in the city. They will depending on they will base on how much needs each part of the society or the government, and they will uh, distribute them. So
To
there is
each,
no money involved in the whole process.
to each according to your need, from each according to your ability.
Yeah. So there's no
Hallmarks. Okay.
Yeah, there is no money
No money.
there was no money involved in that system. Now you think about in that system, if you want to survive, if you want to live in a good life, what do? You try to show the only way you live a better life is you're loyal to the government, you're loyal, especially you have to loyal to the Communist Party. So you're going to end up in a higher position. So then when they do the distribution, You get a little more than anybody everybody else gets.
Do you think today's socialists that are promising all of these things that they're promising actually consider what happened to China and the socialism that was promised? And if you look at China now, the only rich people are those who are connected to the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, that's true. That's what happened in China, right?
That's what happens. That's what
Now,
happens, period.
if they
And
going back, they go back to Chairman Mao's time, then there is no commercial goods anymore. So it's only the people in the higher with higher power will get more material
because they have
through
the,
this
yeah.
distribution process. Now, it definitely it's going to be much less corruption in Xi Jinping's eyes, which is true. During the Cultural Revolution, during Chairman Mao's time, the party has a lot less corruption, but they are doing it in the wrong way. They're doing they achieve less corruption by much more control of the government, by making the society more depending on government, by deprive more freedom from the people. That's how they try, the way Xi Jinping tried to get rid of the corruption. So that's what he's doing now. If even you're doing a wedding party, they will, you need to get approval from the party that how many guests that you're going to invite.
Now that your friend's son is getting married, going to have a banquet, wants to invite 1,000 people.
No, they
The
cannot do that
well,
anymore.
that's
They
what I'm saying. The
probably can.
government says you can only invite 25 people.
Yeah,
Well, bummer.
probably 50 or 60 people the most.
So there, that you only get 50 or 60 red envelopes instead of 1,000. So now, did your friend's son have an opinion on this move by the government to restrict his wedding?
Of course, they don't like it, right? Now, it's not really about the money, but everybody want a big party, right? It's a
Yeah.
big party. You end up you don't have guests, right? You end up basically a lot of people that you want to invite and cannot be invited, right? So, um, but they have to do that just because the rules made by the government, right? So that's how they get rid of the corruption. Now they didn't move in the way that we hope it's going to happen, what's going to happen in China, but they move backwards. Now keep in mind because corruption it's also, the corruption also it's also a threat to the to existential threat to the
Xi Jinping.
power of a Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. So another indication of what we're talking about here is that Chinese state firms are expanding the political vetting to ordinary employees, requiring extensive personal disclosures. So it would be as if your friend's son, who is going to get married, if he works for a state-owned enterprise, has to sit in front of a committee and tell all he knows about his relatives and his friends and everything else. He has to sit down and tell on everybody.
It's true. That's how the situation is being changed. They're not changing in the way we want to see. For example, this is what happened. We think, oh, China's economy collapsed, and, people are just going to rise up and they're going to go against the Chinese government. That's not true. Okay, let me give you analysis. It's similar to what happened to things in Iran and Cuba, then you see, the economy collapse for many, many years, but the regime still there. Now in China, give you an example. This year, this is what happened. They just finished their SAT. Their
College entrance exams.
the higher education entrance exams, right? So they finished that exam. Now this year they totally changed the. You look at this is widely reported. Now, in the years before, people struggled. They get a high once they get higher scores, they become they
They
have
can
once.
become a Mandarin, which is they can become an official. And
No,
this is
no, they can go to those like China's MIT, China
now,
like Tsinghua University, Beijing.
okay,
They go to
gotcha.
those elite universities, right?
Get the good grades, go to the elite universities,
Yes, that Ivy schools, right?
Ivy League.
Like Ivy schools in the United States and China have those Ivy schools too. Now, this year, but because in the last several years, you got like about 20, only a 20% of the college students, college graduates that got a job. 80% of the people they graduate, they have no job, right? So this year, what was observed was all the people get the highest scored. The people get the highest scored. They are not chasing those Ivy schools anymore. They chose what? They chose the army school. They choose the police officer school. The custom
So,
officer
so the
school.
government, they're looking for government jobs.
That's it. So you think the collapse of the economy will let means less control of the society? Come
No, it
on,
means
guys.
more.
That's why I'm keep emphasizing it's the growing threat. We need to deal with. It's not that because their economy going down, they will become a less threat. It's totally different way.
And one more story reflecting on this. Talks about the razor wire barriers that divide Beijing and neighboring Hebei villages as the CCP strengthens its controls. So they're stringing up razor wire to keep people out of Beijing. Citizens, neighboring villages.
Well, they have been doing that for a long time. They try to get rid of the people from entering the schools to get a job, right? There's a lot of farmers they're getting to the.
Rural, yeah, we're keeping rural. That we were going to talk about I think it's called the HUCO program or of village registration, right? It was
No, it's not true. That's not true. Actually, they actually relax a lot of the hukou system. Hukou basically is the residence ID, right? So
right,
you have the local residency. It's like we have that some of that too. So like if you grew up in California, you go to different state, you go to their university, then you're going to pay foreign students tuition, right? Just because you never
right,
pay,
right. Okay,
which is reasonable here in the United States, because you never pay the local tax in those
but the
states.
HUCO system was designed to keep rural people out of the city, as I understand it.
Not only that, not only that. So you have a resident card in one city, which means even you go to a different city, you are not going to have the resident card, right? You don't have the legal residency of the different city. Even you are from one city to another city, the hukou is not interchangeable. It's like just because um, you have a resident status in one city doesn't mean you can just go get to the different city and to get the resident um,
Mhm.
uh, status. So but it's easier if you go from bigger city, like you live in Beijing, Shanghai, or Canton, Guangzhou. Then you exchange your hukou, your resident uh, status to a smaller city. That's in the Chairman Mao's time. You exchange. Usually sometimes people have to do that. They because of a job, of a family, or
Right.
whatever the situation. So they make the exchange of their resident status, between cities. So the people living in the smaller city will take advantage in that kind of a situation because they get to go to live in a bigger city, right? So, and of course, if you're not as you don't have any city, the urban area resident status, then you becomes you're farmers. Yeah, you're farmers,
Yeah.
right? Then the farmers, they will not have a lot of social welfare that the city people enjoy. Now, however, that has been changed uh, because all these big cities, they overbuild so much of the residential apartments. So nowadays in the city, it's very easy. No matter where you are, you're a farmer or you are living a different city. It's very easy for you to go to any city, even the big cities. All you need to do is, if you have money, you go there, you try to buy, you can buy some of the apartments that's being empty there. They will give you the hukou, the residential status for free. So
As long
so
as you
what
can get an apartment.
yeah, as long as they're rich enough, right?
Okay.
So now but what they really do, it's not to prevent the people living in countryside coming to the city. They're really trying to it's preventing the farmers coming to the city to get a job. If you don't have money, you're not welcome because used to be when during the economy booming time, the poor people from countryside, they will come in, they will end up in the construction industry, or they'll end up in the manufacture factories, getting the low end jobs. um, they welcome them to come because they need the labor, they need the cheap labor. But now, because the economy is collapsing, they want to keep these people out because once these people come into the city, they become the problem of the city. So, but however, if you do have money, they welcome you come.
Yeah.
They will give you the residential status for free.
If you
So
have money.
it's money. Right now, it's the money game. So there's a lot of things being changed in China, but however, ideologically, they are moving every way, every step, basically going back to Chairman Mao's time, which is not a joke, which is dangerous, because because we allowed the China, and we actually help China become industrialized, and we help the regime have such a strong military and manufacture capacity. So we really don't have much time, doing wishful thinking.
No
We
more,
need to
no more
spend
wishful thinking.
Yeah,
Well,
we need to
if
spend every minute to strengthen our military and provide our military personnel, provide the American men and women in military to
with
get whatever
everything
they
they
need.
need. Well, Nancy, I bring this up, the stringing razor wire around Beijing to keep people out or maybe keep people in works both ways. At any rate, I bring it up because it reinforces the impression that we've been talking about for quite some time, that China more resembles a prison than it does a country. Here in the West, we have a citizenry that has a say in things. Sometimes we're not so certain how much say, but we have a say in things. We have the feeling that the country is ours. But in China, the does not belong to the people of China. It belongs to the Chinese Communist Party. And so we often make the remark, uh, sometimes a little bit off the cuff, that, gosh, it looks like a prison.
It's a true.
And
China
it
is the
really
biggest
does look
prison.
like a
Yeah,
prison.
it's the biggest prison in the world. You know, you have like all the people, like over 1 billion people or population that's like living in the jail. You know,
But
there's no freedom.
there's this wonderful piece, and in the Epoch Times, and a real short read here. Videos and photos circulated online in recent days show a green metal fence topped with razor wire erected between Baoshang village and Beijing's Dongshu district. Surveillance cameras have been installed along the barrier, while some village roads have been blocked with iron gates, concrete barriers, and parked trucks. The images have drawn widespread attention on Chinese social media, with some netizens accusing the regime of turning the Chinese capital into a giant prison.
It's
And
a
so
the jail. It's a prison already.
it's a prison already. And it's something that we've been talking about for quite some times, but I'm sure people listen to what we've been saying about it and think, oh, you guys are crazy. And I wonder as we go into this election, which is really going to decide the course of a lot of things for the next 2 years, um, just how severely this whole socialism thing that Chinese Communist Party has going is really destroyed a culture and a nation
Oh, of
and turned
course.
it into a
You know,
prison.
Americans do need to worry about all that, and especially I think our Democratic friends need to worry about, what's their culture being replaced. You know, they're not really fighting for this the economic rights for the working class anymore. You know, they changed it. They changed to instead of fighting for a bunch of who knows where they get those ideologies. I think that they need to go back to. I think um, our Democrat friends, they need to go back to basically fight for the working class's economic rights.
Which was the heart of the Democrat Party.
Yes,
When I grew up, that's
that's what it is. Now think about this. I remember, during President Lincoln's time, that Karl Marx, they live in the same age, so Karl Marx actually wrote a letter published in New York Times,
where else?
admire President Lincoln's support to the unions, to the labor unions. Now, of course, President Lincoln did not reply his letter because they are fighting for different things. Karl Marx basically, he's basically, to destroy the entire world, old world they call it, and then the working class will lose nothing but their chain, right? That's Karl Marx's idea. President Lincoln support the labor unions movement with one condition. That condition is to pay respect of the private property rights, uh, while Karl Marx did not have respect to the private property rights. So that's the fundamental difference. I think that going back to the traditional way of a democratic party, it's it's basically to show respect to the private property rights, and also of course there's a lot of other things that, in American culture that which
Sure.
actually has made America that leading the whole world for the cultural change of past 200 years. We don't want to lose that.
So much of what I see on the streets of the United States these days reminds me so much of what I saw in China during the Great Cultural Revolution, in which the Red Guards tore down everything,
That's right. That's true.
everything.
Yeah, that's true. Um, I mean, American culture it have been leading the whole world in the past 200 years, and we don't lo want to lose that. There are some fundamental values that we respect. We respect,
Well, there were fundamental values of thousands of years of Chinese culture
Yeah,
that
well, China already lost it. China already lost that. If you want to see those traditional culture, you go to Taiwan, or maybe even you go to Korea or South Korea or Japan. They got some of those. China already totally lost it. China now the only culture in China is the communist culture. It's Karl Marx's culture. Um, I don't think they pay any respect um, to the traditional culture, except the legitimism that what I call it. Uh, they don't pay respect to the excellent part of Chinese culture, which is the Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. But what they pay what Xi Jinping um, want is that they want to inherit legalism. Legalism, that's the bad part of traditional Chinese culture. You have a good part that's you have a good part of a
and the
traditional
legalism was kind of what locked people into a place in which they could not really escape. The
Well,
legalism.
the legalism is the government make a law. There's no
Yes.
check and balance. They it's n- we have a rule of law. That rule of law is we have a complete legal structure.
Framework. Yeah.
We have power check and
So
balance.
when we hear people saying we need to get rid of the Supreme Court, we need to get rid of the Senate, we need to get rid of the presidency, we need to get rid of it all, they're really talking like the Red Guards of the Cultural Revolution in
That's
China.
right. And also that's like going to the traditional the worst part of Chinese culture, that's a legalism. Legalism is the government make the law wherever they want, wherever the way they want to, and the entire legal system loyal to the government, and then uh, government make the law, and then you don't you are not participate into the lawmaking process, but they make the law, and then they use those law to control the society, control the people. That's what legalism. And
And
one of the important part of legalism is priority of military, because military is the tool for the government to control the society. Like North Korea, that's a complete legalism. The military got a top priority for everything.
and in China, the military's first job is to protect the CCP.
That's right. And you see, like the example I just mentioned, this year, all these young people, after they took the SAT exam, their first choice become military school or the police school or any school that will lead to a
A
government
government
position.
job
See?
because there is no other industry
So that it really make you basically you see this is how socialism or communism they really make the society and the people as dependent of the government.
which
So
is the essence of a prison. If you're a prisoner in a prison, you're
well they will
totally
then the people now that everyone is fighting to become a prison guard, right?
a prison guard, yes.
So this is the problem. See, it's become more and more dangerous. People wake up, the collapse of China's economy, it's making China, the CCP more and more dangerous. So we cannot waste any time thinking they're just gone tomorrow as we sleep. We need to strengthen our military capacity, every
And those
minute
of
that we
our
still have.
allies in the area too.
Yeah, well,
And we need to pick up our allies in Europe and encourage them to get off their butt and start defending themselves.
yeah, I don't know if they can do it. They are they become complacent for so long. They all they care is their happiness index. Every year they talk about the top
The free
the
stuff
the,
parties.
the MP happiness index. Number one, I think, is Finland, and number two is Denmark. I
Uh,
mean, these countries they can protect themselves. I
how
mean,
long did it take Germany to roll through Denmark?
I don't know, few
One
hours.
one day.
Yeah,
One day.
a few hours
A
basically.
few hours.
Yeah, so it's I don't know, if they really have the resolve to strengthen their military to protect themselves. One day they're going to wake up. One
So
day they're going to wake up.
everything that we've been talking about today with respect to um, how the young of China are essentially giving up on tech, giving up on industry, giving up on and going right for the government jobs that will in effect turn them into prison guards.
That's right.
They if
That's
they
why
get
it is. That's why it is. Maybe I'm not that optimistic, but I do want to raise this issue and raise this awareness to see, how much challenge that's facing us, facing the United States, facing the Western world because of past the 30, 40 years, and maybe even longer, of a wrong China policy of our government. I think we need to face it.
well, I think we are facing it. At least some of us are.
Yeah, of course. Well, we not quick enough. We need to do it a lot faster, because the world is changing very fast. And I see that I think Japan is changing a lot quicker. Now they start late,
Yeah,
Japan
they have
start
a very late start.
yeah, they late start, but they changing quickly, and then they have over the Japanese government's defense policy, their national security policy get overwhelming support from their society, like 70, 80% of the people supporting the way the new government security policy and defense, military, all these movements get overwhelming support from Japanese society. Now, keeping in mind, Japan still have Japan still have over 10,000 um, business in China. Those they employed like millions of jobs. They gave millions of job opportunities to the Chinese society. But they're not afraid of making that change because those changes will impact those business in China, right? The Japanese business in China, but they're not afraid of making those changes,
Well,
and they're not afraid of making Beijing angry.
do you think the reason they're not afraid of that they actually see the need to stand up to China is a consequence of proximity to China and to their history with China?
No, it's the proximity to China. It's a geopolitical choice, right? They seeing how what they have seen is uh now keep in mind many of the Japanese prime ministers say this: if Taiwan is in trouble, then so is Japan,
Japan
because Japan,
and the
although
Philippines
it's a
and Vietnam and the
yeah, all Japan, although it has a big economy, but because it's an island nation, its trade, its economy heavily depending on their supply chain outside and resources from outside. And once if China take over Taiwan, that's it for Japan. Japan go down the hill. So they don't want to see that happen. And also because the provocative behavior of Chinese military around like Diaoyu or the islands, some of the islands that Japan and China had a territory dispute, right?
it's where the gray zone warfare is going on
Right,
right
right.
now.
Think about last year, that the Chinese Coast Guard ship show up, 350 days in those territory.
Yep.
Right.
So
You
they're
have
there.
365 days. They show up 35 days, 350 days at your doorstep. What are you going to think?
So
Right? So those things they
it's the
really
camel's nose
constantly,
under the tent flap.
yeah, they constantly those things constantly reminding how much danger and challenging facing their whole society.
Well,
But
it's
while
pretty,
we
it's
are like
yeah,
we
it's
are
pretty
so
easy to
far away.
see why they are pretty nervous about that, the history, that the potential that's going to happen here. But we're clear across the Pacific Ocean, and there's whales to pet between us and them. So we're naturally complacent. That's so far away. There's
That's
no
right.
danger
That's
to
why
us.
we don't see this, right? That's why
Yes.
we don't see this. And that's why we need to gear up and we need to make things happen. Uh,
But how do we come to grips with the fact that we need to do that when we have people talking about, hell, we need to get rid of the government? We need to, they're talking about all of the things they're talking about, and you kind of scratch your head and you say, ladies
I
and
would
gentlemen,
suggest I
there's a
would
country
suggest
there.
those people who want to get rid of border, who want to open border, I would suggest them move to China, have Chinese government have an open border and you know
Does
see if
anybody want to move to China?
well, they want to live on the socialist system, right? China had a existing socialist system.
It's
If
all
they
set
like
up and ready
socialism
to
that
go.
much, why don't they just move to China? There you go. They get everything they wanted, right?
Well, until they got it, and they want it, they can get everything they want until they get it, and then they're not going to want it so much, I think, which is the
Uh,
history of socialism. You can vote it in, but you can't vote it out, like
well,
the people of China have discovered. You
they can't
voted it
even vote.
in,
They
and
don't. They have no right to vote. There's no what they don't have. They never vote, right? They don't have the right to vote. That's
and
the
they don't
problem,
have a right to have an opinion.
right?
And so they essentially voted this in. They had a revolution to make things better, and it was all going to be for the people. And it
Never
turned out
happened.
to be all for the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, the people become thrives, right? I mean,
Chives, that's right.
chives, right? They
The people
become
become
chives,
chives.
and they got harvested from time to time.
So if we do not remember history, if we do not pay attention to it, if we do not consider the consequences of our actions, as the Red Guard never considered the consequence of their actions, they were a mob that completely destroyed the culture, the 8,000-year-old culture of a country. It just erased it for a totalitarian fascist regime that turned the country into a prison.
Yeah, that's a sad, it's I don't want to see what happened in China, to take place here in the United States. That would be really sad for our children and grandchildren.
And maybe we should do everything we can possibly can to let our fellow citizens of the United States of America know that there is a country on the other side of the ocean that is different from us to the extent that it must destroy us to survive.
Well, that's the communist regime in China. Yeah, that it's a threat, it's a challenge, and we have been wrong in the way dealing with the communist regime in China for
If,
30, 40, 50
yeah,
years. See, history is a big lesson to us.
and that
Look
is,
at the last century's history. There's two ways how we dealt with communist system. There was one way which was successful. That was the way how we dealt with Soviet Union, and there was another way which brutally failed. That's how we deal with the Chinese Communist Party in China, and we need to learn how we did from the successful um, way of dealing with Communist Party.
no more panda love for China. Done, done, done. Nancy, thank you very much. And thank you all for tuning in. This has been China Now. 中国现在. China Now, friend or foe.